put on record my concern about the effects of a potential ban on smoking in outdoor spaces, including pub gardens. This will be contrary to the spirit of liberty and will displace smoking to other locations.
Madam
Chair, and the honourable member for this debate. It's a very valid and appreciated topic. Given some of the specifics that have already been put forward today, I feel it's fortunate for me that I can keep things at a high level. And I'd like to ask the Minister to hear the kind of rallying cries I'm hearing from my constituents, which is save the local pub and save the family breweries. Now, I think there's two things I'd like to ask you to focus your mind on. And one is to avoid the pitfalls that come with the kind of counter-intuitiveness of the situation you're in. Namely, by increasing tax burdens even further, actually end up generating less revenue for the Treasury. So, for example, in my constituency of South Basildon and East Thurrock, we only have 23 pubs remaining. Now, we've already touched on the alarming rates in which pubs are closing. One, for example, in my constituency, very close to where I grew up, was the Barge. It's a 200-year-old pub. It is now gone and it won't come back. So, for example, we're raising over £33 million in revenue for the economy from those 23 pubs, 10 million of which is going into tax. If you keep burdening those pubs will close and you will receive less money. Furthermore, people who do want to drink and do want to smoke will do, and as the honourable member, forgive me, but the honourable member touched upon with minimal pricing, what we're seeing is actually decreasing in people's health. So what I'd like you to be really conscious of is the dangers of accidentally worsening the situation for both the tax and people's health, because people will drink if they want to, people will smoke if they want to, but they will do those things in places where it is not regulated, it is less safe, and no tax will be generated as well. So we must be very mindful of this, and I'll just finish by thanking everyone and say, save our local pubs.
Julie Minns.
Thank you, Sir. It is a pleasure to serve under your chairship, and may I add my thanks to the member for Mid Leicestershire for bringing this debate. I think, as the member for Carlisle, I can lay a unique claim in this debate, that being that the pubs and breweries of Carlisle were once, for a period of 50 years, nationalised. So what you drank, where you drank it and when you drank it was determined just up the road here in Whitehall. And to understand that rather unusual state of affairs, you must return to 1916. War is raging in Europe, and just across the border in Gretna lies Europe's largest munitions factory. Meanwhile, down the road in Carlisle lies one of the finest, might I say, collections of pubs and breweries. Sadly, the bounteous supply of beer and ordnance combined together was not a match made in heaven, and the government nationalised the pubs in 1916, and so it remained until 1973. And the reason that that's relevant today is when those pubs were privatised, they were sold off in large job lots, meaning that even to this day, the majority of our pubs in Carlisle remain in the ownership of the large breweries. What that means for the independent breweries like Great Corby, the Carlisle Brewing Company, West Walls and the Old Vicarage in Walton is getting their product into our pubs is really difficult. And I would therefore urge the Minister to raise with his colleagues the application of the pubs code so that we can ensure more of our independent breweries have access to the customers in the pubs in all of our constituencies. And the final point I would like to make, again to support our wonderful independent breweries, is for consideration of increasing the draft beer relief to 20%, which SEBA and others estimate would be a huge boost, not just to our local businesses, but to the whole economy.
Gareth Davis.
Well, I'm very grateful to you, Madam Chair, and congratulate my honourable friend for Mid Leicestershire on bringing this very important debate. We could talk about the economic contribution of our pubs, the £54 billion of tax revenue, the 3.5 million people that are employed, but ultimately, as many members have outlined, it's the community benefits that our pubs bring to all of our communities and our constituencies. In my constituency of Grantham and Bourne, I have 79 pubs, not just in our two towns of Grantham and Bourne, but across our postcard picture villages, such as the Green Man in Ropsley, the Wishing Well in Dyke, and many, many others that I could go on and on to mention, possibly to my benefit when I write to them after this speech. They are concerned. They are really concerned right now about the environment that will ensue after the Halloween budget. They are concerned about the potential national insurance increase, which won't just break Labour's manifesto, it will break many of our pubs. They are very concerned about last night's bill, the Employment Rights Bill, and the burdens that will increase on them. And they are very concerned about the implications of the outdoor smoking ban. In government, we sought to support them as best we could with 75% rates relief. We increased the VAT threshold, and we did many things like the Brexit Pubs Guarantee, which changed the dynamic of alcohol duty to ensure that the pint in the pub always pays less duty than a can of beer in the supermarket. The Minister will not be able to speculate on what's in the Halloween budget, but he should know that we are united, I think, in the room today in the need to support our pub sector, not just for the economy, but for all of our constituencies' community.
Ms Murray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairship. I represent the city centre of Edinburgh, so it's impossible to overstate the critical contribution of the hospitality sector, not just the economy of my constituency, but to Scotland and the UK as a whole. For example, the Scottish whisky industry produces £7.2 billion for the UK economy every year, and collectively, visits to distilleries in Scotland are the biggest single-ticketed venue in the UK, like the Holyrood distillery in the centre of my constituency. And the pub sector in Scotland is absolutely critical, generating £2.3 billion in GVA contributions in Scotland alone and employing 45,000 workers. But tragically, pubs are closing in Scotland at twice the rate that they're closing in England. And I want to reassure the House that me and my Scottish Labour colleagues are making sure that the needs and opportunities of the whisky sector and of the pub sector in Scotland are being heard right at the heart of this new government. I want to touch on a couple of contributions that the pub and hospitality sector make beyond the economic. Firstly, loneliness. Loneliness is as big a killer in this country as cancer, and pubs are critical in tackling that in the community. Secondly, career paths, particularly for the young. The contribution that can make to soft skills that we desperately need in the economy is vastly underestimated. I began my career working for 2 years in the restaurant of the Hilton Hotel in Glasgow, and it taught me a lot of critical life lessons I use in this place. And so it's really important that we get the policy dynamics of this right. That is tax and incentives, but it's also the obligations we put on the sector. Please learn from the Scottish experience of the disastrous deposit return scheme, which has been a real challenge to the sector, and also the uncertainty on business rates created by the SNP government in Holyrood. I'm running out of time, so thank you very much.
Terrible.
I'd like to start by thanking the Honourable Member for Mid-Leicestershire for securing this debate on pub and hospitality industry. So in my rural constituency of South Northamptonshire, we have 95 pubs and 4 breweries, which support 1,950 jobs, generating £26 million in tax and contributing £48 million to the local economy. But pubs contribute so much more than that. And I don't just mean the Toaster Mill Brewery in my constituency providing the Strangers Bar with the famous Bell Ringer beer, well known for its zesty orange marmalade notes with a earthy and spicy aftertaste. Now, I was invited to visit the White Hart in Hackleton in my constituency at the end of September to hear firsthand what it is like to run a pub in 2024. And aside from the issues around alcohol duty, VAT and business rates, one of the most striking points from our conversation was what it would actually mean for local people should the pubs be forced to close. We cannot underestimate the power of the community that is created and fostered in rural areas around the local pub. Indeed, with the lack of bus services and wider issues around transport, it can be a crucial source of truly local employment for some villagers. I was told of one pub who had taken on a local girl with Down syndrome, who otherwise would have struggled to access employment outside of the village due to the lack of transport. So for her, it was a real lifeline, and she had developed not only her resume, but also her professional and social skills. So my ask for the sector is that we consider cutting VAT